back to Hometown TCG, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John.
And I'm Josh. And we are back with some new content back up in the studio. And guys, we've done a ton of beginner-friendly stuff recently. We've done a lot of budget stuff for our newer players. But those callings and those road to nationals, they're right around the corner. So it's time to turn on these competitive juices.
That's right. Today we are bringing you the top 6 tips you need to know to take your game to the advanced level. But before we do, be sure to click the subscribe button because we are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. We're excited for that, but let's just get right into this.
Absolutely. So the first tip for our more advanced players, kind of small things to take their game to the next level, that's going to be aware of your opponent's discard pile. You need to be tracking cards used and cards still available.
So you're no longer just playing hand-to-hand, seeing what your opponent's doing. You need to be able to predict things, and knowing their discard pile gives you an accurate description of probably what's coming.
Yeah, for example, let's talk defense reactions.
Okay.
If I've seen 2 Fate for Scenes out of my opponent, and I've got an attack that I just need to hit 100%, I'm smelling 3rd Fate for Scene. I gotta plan this. Maybe I do something to draw it out, maybe I hold off, but I'm waiting to see that 3rd copy.
Yeah, your play order, your sequencing always depends on what you're predicting your opponent to do. So you can arsenal that, save it for later. You can do it later in the attack. Those things matter. But the same thing happens on defense. If you know your opponent has amazing hit effects and they have attack reactions, and you see 2 Razor Reflexes in the discard pile, you're probably waiting for the 3rd. You're playing around it. You're always predicting, and that's how you can take your game to the next level.
Yeah, knowing this and being aware of this is definitely going to win you some games that you would otherwise lose. Guys, it's okay at any moment to feel free, as long as you're not slow playing, you don't have to do it every turn, right? But if you lose track, ask your opponent, hey, can I see your discard pile? Keep track of what is going on there. And that kind of bleeds into tip number 2, and I think this tip is one of your favorite tips.
It's knowing the popular deck lists. So if you see the Matt Rogers deck list, he just puts a new deck list out there, go ahead and memorize it. You got to know how many are in there.
Yeah.
I know that the popular blitz decks for Ira were playing 1 Razor Reflex. That's important to know.
Yes, and 2 Sigil of Solace, exactly.
Yeah, so you got to know these things. Know that if we put a deck list out there, know the Hometown TCG deck list. Know what's coming. All right? If you're playing against a Bravo, probably a Kale McCreath list. Know these important things so you can predict, just like in the previous tip.
And even if you don't know the list to a T and card for card, as long as you know the shell and the popular lines of play and having a rough idea of the things that you're going to see, it's going to help you. You will now have a competitive advantage over an opponent who doesn't know your list and doesn't know what you want to do. This is absolutely crucial. It can help you sequence much better in late games, and it can help you surprise your opponents with kind of seeing what's coming.
So, piggybacking off of this is knowing your opponent's path to victory.
Oh,
which
tip
is
number
tip
3.
number 3.
Yes.
Right? Because if you know their list and you know exactly how they play,
Sure.
you can actually start to apply these predictions.
I think the best way to go about getting a grasp on tip number 3 and getting an understanding of your opponent's path to victory and how they want to beat you is by playing that deck. Guys, I've preached this probably since we've started the channel. The best way to learn how to beat a deck is to play the deck and win with it. You know what a path to success looks like, so you know how to disrupt it.
Yeah, so guys, I'm going to say one that's kind of maybe plaguing the community right now. Go out there and play Katsu. Because people haven't played him much in Blitz, so they don't know him as well. But if you see that your opponent's discard pile has, they already have 3 Whelming Gust Waves in there, 3 red ones, and they're coming at you with a hit effect where they can search for a card. If you know they can't search for that, you're like, go ahead and search for it.
Exactly. So if you know how to win with, and this was actually a problem I had, once you know how to win with Katsu, you know when to block, you know what to block. Kind of same goes for Chain, right? The more you play Chain, the more you realize what a disrupted Chain turn looks like and how to go about it.
Right. Avoid the Rift Binds. Same thing with Dorinthia. So it kind of applies to any hero.
It really does.
Know their list, or predict their list, know how they're going to win, and then play around it.
100%. And the best way to play around that is actually tip number 4. And that is through your sideboard and your side deck, guys. You need to have a plan. If you are aware of your opponent's discard pile, if you kind of know their list, you know their path to victory, well, not aware of the discard pile because the game hasn't started, but you're aware of all these things, you know what cards need to go in when you're side decking.
And not only what they need to go in, you got to know what comes out.
100%. You can't just stuff a bunch of cards in your deck and take nothing else or nothing out. You're going to ruin your pitch ratios. You're going to ruin your draw ratios. You need to know what's coming out in certain matches.
Right. If you have your deck finely tuned, you know that maybe for every 4 reds, you have to have a blue.
Yes.
Or 3 reds, you have to have a blue. So if you're putting in 3 red defense reactions, you got to put that blue in. Or maybe you got to take 3 reds out. So this is all stuff you have to consider. And I suggest writing it down. Against Katsu, I do this. Against blah, 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 I do this.
That's a great tip, 100%. So that way, when you sit across this hero against essentially at pairings, you have a plan.
Yes, you're not thinking about it on the fly. You're going to have so many things to think about at a big event. Get this done beforehand.
Absolutely. So all of the examples we've used so far they've been Katsu, they've been Chain, they've been Dorinthia Bravo, and that is essentially tip number 5. Know all of these top tier heroes, especially, and build your deck knowing that you're going to see them. Don't build your deck saying, well, if I don't play a Chain, I'll go XO. You're gonna see these top tier heroes you gotta build around.
Yep. Guys, the way the tournaments are designed is that if you win, you're playing against other people that win. If you're 5-0, you're gonna play against other decks that are 5-0, so you're probably playing those better decks. Sure, you may say, oh, Azalea has a bunch of hit effects that can shut down Chain, but she has a 0% win rate against Bravo.
Or Dorinthia.
So it just makes it hard if you're trying to like gear against these super specific things. Just gear against the top things.
Yes, you can't gear against every specific deck, so just trust the fact that you will have the opportunity to outplay and win against lower tier decks while being prepared and deck build around the higher tier decks. You're going to be in a good spot.
That's right. So we got one more tip, and I think it's a pretty important one, man.
This is a huge tip, but before we get into it, again, one last shout out. All of you guys that have blown up the channel, all of our patrons over at patreon.com/HometowntCG. We really appreciate all you guys. And again, racing to 2,000 subs. That's going to be an absolute blast. But tip number 6, I think, as an actor yourself, is probably your favorite tip. So go ahead.
Is don't reveal information. So this can happen twofold. The first is the more obvious way, which is you're like, oh, I pitched that card. You're revealing that card.
Yeah,
you're like,
you
oh,
show
I'll play.
your-
You know what? Wait, no, I'm not going to play that one. And then you save that card and put it in the arsenal. And your opponent's like, okay, well, I know what he has coming. I can play around that.
Yeah, so the base version is literally don't show your opponent your cards.
The more subtle way is don't reveal anything emotionally.
Yes, 100%. And that can be done through a look of frustration on an attack. It can be done through a look of excitement. It can even be done as simple as something that if I'm attacking a Bravo player and the Bravo player puts his hand down, leans back and says, yep, I take it. I now know you're coming at me with a crippling crush, a spinal crush, something pretty influential.
Yeah.
So I'm throwing every bit of damage I got
I'm preparing
at you.
around that. Maybe that's the turn I decide to do my Rift Binds. Maybe I'm clearing my bandage zone out because I know I'm not going to be able to play out of it next turn. Maybe I'm using that card from the arsenal to push through the extra damage.
Yes, and all of that is valuable information that you as an advanced player cannot afford to give away.
Oh, Intimidate? Let me stare at this one card.
Don't pick that one, right?
Come on, don't pick it. Oh, how'd you know?
How'd you know? Guys, this is stuff we have seen happen at events. We've seen it live. If you can make these improvements to your game, you're going to turn a lot of losses into wins. Now, don't get us wrong. These are a little more difficult, but with some practice, with some training, you can get it done.
Guys, you are playing poker at a high level here. You're trying to outsmart your opponent. Any little advantage you get is going to take you over the top. So learn those things, practice them, apply them, and don't get too emotional.
Don't get too emotional, guys. This has been an absolute blast. We love being back in the studio. There's some studio changes coming, but we'll get into that in another video. And until then, my name is Josh.
And I'm John.
And go turn some of those losses into win, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you around.